Hi there and welcome to Bustthenet. This is a show brought to you by One Football app. And on today's show, we're gonna take a look at backs. Yes, these are the full range of fullbacks that you can get in the game. We're going to look at fullbacks, wingbacks, defensive wingbacks, complete wingbacks, and inverted wingbacks. We're gonna talk about how they are different and how you can use them in your game. The defensive fullback is a player who focuses on his defensive duties and rarely goes forward. The key attributes a defensive fullback should have include marking, tackling, strength, positioning, determination, bravery, and concentration. The defensive fullback has a lower mentality than other fullbacks. He also has some locked-in instructions. He shoots less often, dribbles less, tends to play more direct passes, fewer risky passes, which means he tends to play passes to feet. Now, if he doesn't have a passing option, chances are he's going to hoof the ball, which means just clear the ball. He crosses less often and also tends to hold his position. Does this mean that he never overlaps? Now, if you have control of the opposition half, chances are he will come up and support play, but his first priority is always going to be looking after the flanks. The most important thing to understand about fullbacks is their starting position, because this is guided by their duty as well as their mentality within the team. Now, the individual mentality of the fullback on defense is slightly higher than the defensive fullback. He also has fewer locked-in play instructions, which means that he will make crosses, but he does it from deep. He takes fewer risky passes and he tends to hold his position. As long as you have control of the opposition half, the fullback on defense will still take part in an attacking transition. He may not overlap all the time, but if you've camped yourself, he's going to make himself available for passes, but he will tend to hold his position and not overcommit. So he makes for a very good option if you're trying to lock down a certain flank in your tactic. The next role we're going to take a look at is the fullback. Now, the fullback has several duties in and out for defense, support, attack, and automatic. The fullback on defense supplements traditional defensive duties with the job of going forward to support attacks. A fullback on defense duty is going to hold his position, but he is going to be slightly further forward when it comes to initial positioning compared to the defensive fullback. So if the defensive fullback is positioned closer to the central defenders, the fullback on defense is slightly further away than the defensive fullback. So when you're trying to build up play, he gets involved in the defense to midfield transition. Once you've taken control of the midfield and you're camping in an opponent's half, the fullback on defense is more likely to get involved in some of the attacking transitions. However, the fullback on defense is more likely to cross from deep than to make a run down the byline. The key attributes for a fullback on defense duty are going to be marking, tackling, positioning, and teamwork. These are the main attributes you want to focus on if you want him to play in a defense duty, because positioning is going to be important. So is marking and tackling. Naturally, concentration, anticipation play a role here. But if you're just trying to focus on the key attributes, the first attribute you want to nail down is positioning. When you are looking at a fullback and you're expecting to play in a more supporting role, then you're going to have to add on anticipation, concentration, positioning, teamwork, work rate, and stamina, because a fullback on support role is expected to support the team in defense as well as in attack. Now, a fullback on attack duty, you'll need to add crossing as well as off the ball and acceleration if you want to look at him from a more attacking point of view. The next role we're going to take a look at is the wingback. The wingback is the more interesting role in the game. It's the modern variation of the fullback with a greater emphasis on attack. Now, he also has a higher starting position than a fullback on defense. So if you look at the two here, you can compare the differences. Now, this has a role to play in the game, because literally when you have the ball, the wingback on defense is going to be positioned slightly further away than a fullback on defense would be, and this has important implications for transitioning the ball. So if you're trying to move the ball around the pitch effectively, wingbacks are going to be positioned further up, so there's a bit more of a challenge in terms of trying to protect the flanks. There's a bit more of a challenge to get the transitions worked out right, because the wingbacks, their primary focus is definitely on attack. Now, don't get me wrong, the wingbacks have duties as well. They've got three duties: defense, support, attack, as you know, and you definitely have automatic. Automatic just means they change your mentality. Now, the wingback on defense, support, and attack. Does a defense duty mean he doesn't go forward and attack? This is a popular myth. All right, people seem to think that when you play a duty on defense, he never attacks. That can't be further from the truth. The wingback on defense will still take part in an attacking transition, provided you have control of the opposition half. So a wingback on defense does take part. He just doesn't make it a priority. However, his starting position, which is high up the pitch, means he is closer in supporting players in the midfield area. It also means that he is more placed high up the pitch. Defensively, this has implications because if you play on like fluid shape settings where he's would mean that he's positioned closer to the midfield. If ball comes over the top, he might be compromised. This means that if whenever you're playing wing backs, and if you're thinking of playing them in a fluid shape, or if you're thinking of using them in a more defensive role, they definitely need stamina, positioning, and acceleration, because they're going to have to come back very quickly. Wing backs are typically more attacking in orientation. So whenever you want to use a wing back, the first thing you want to look at is whether or not this player can actually perform the role. There's no point putting any Tom, Dick and Harry into a wingback role if he can't really get out there and do something with the ball. See, the wingbacks are an attacking variation of the fullback. So if you want to use a wingback, there are two reasons why you're going to use it. First, you want him to be closer supporting your midfield, or B, you want him to bomb down the flanks and deliver crosses. Now, if that is the case and you have the player for it, then use the role. But in order for you to decide what are the key attributes that a wingback on defense basically a wingback for any other matter, what would be the key attributes? The key attributes for any wingback, if you want to use them in a support duty, you definitely got to consider positioning. Now, here it all depends on how you want to play the wingback. Now, if I'm playing the wingback on an attack duty, I definitely have no plans on getting him to defend. I don't really care about his defensive attributes. Then here I'm looking more at his ability to get up the pitch, which would mean that I need him to have good acceleration, decisions, crossing, off the ball, work rate, teamwork, pace, stamina, crossing. This is what I want from a wingback, right? So if I want him to bomb up the flanks and I want him to deliver crosses, this is what I want. However, if you want him to do some defensive work as well, which is possible, he can do that, then you need positioning, anticipation, and concentration. So whenever you're looking to decide whether or not you want somebody to perform a defensive role, you look at positioning, anticipation, concentration as the mental attributes. Then if it's a wing back, then you add in acceleration, because without acceleration, it's never getting back in time, right? So you got positioning, anticipation, concentration. These are the prime mental attributes for any player you want coming back to defend. If you don't care about defense duty and you just want him to bomb down the flanks, acceleration becomes important. Off the ball crossing decisions. Now, these are the attributes I would look at if I want him to bomb down the flanks. If I want him to do both jobs, then I have to put all the attributes together and mix it all up nicely and go, okay, fine, can I find somebody to do that? Here, these are this is the thing about the wingback. Because of his starting position, he's going to be slightly further up the pitch, which means that your flanks can be vulnerable, even with a wingback on defense. Now, a wingback on defense is slightly high up the pitch, but if you have the right mental attributes for this player, then he can definitely come back and do something defensively. Because of his higher starting position, he definitely can lend support to the midfielders if they need to have somebody to pass the ball to. A wingback on attack duty is just going to bomb down the flanks even more. He's going to be higher up the pitch. He's going to take part in transitions. He's going to kick off in transitions a bit earlier. This applies to the fullbacks on attack as well. So the moment the ball moves over the halfway line, the fullbacks are going to start getting into the attack position. So will the wingbacks. The difference between the two is the wingback is going to be further forward than a fullback would be when you are moving the ball through midfield. Now, once you get into the opponent's half and you're looking to create an attacking transition, then the wingback on attack is going to try and attack the flanks. What do you need? Any specific player for this role? The most important thing you want, if you're opting to use wingbacks, then you're opting to attack the flanks. Fullbacks can attack the flanks too. Don't get me wrong. They both can attack the flanks. Fullbacks have a 50-50 a tolerance. They will try and attack and they'll try and defend. A fullback on attack will be high up the pitch, but when he comes back, he's going to drop deeper to defend compared to a wingback, because the starting position of the fullback and the wingback are different. So if I had a tactic like this, they both, the fullback and the wingback are both on defensive duty. But if I opted to turn this into a wide midfielder on support and tell the wide midfielder on support to sit narrow, cut inside with the ball when he does have the ball. So what happens now is the wide midfielder on support is going to move inside when he does have the ball, and he's also going to sit narrow. This wing back on attack is just going to have the whole pitch to himself. He's just going to bomb down the flanks whenever he gets a chance to. Can I do this with a wingback on support? Yes, the wingback on support will overlap too. Once the ball goes near the halfway line, if you have some control of the pitch, the wingback on support is going to be higher up. He'll be able to support the wide midfielder on support, and he too will try and overlap. But his overlapping runs are going to happen when you have control of the half. So wingbacks are an exceptional tool to use in the game. However, whenever you use a wingback, you have to remember that the wingback's first order of business is attacking. So if you find that your flanks are being exposed because of the wingback, then it's because you've chosen a wingback. If you don't want the wingback to be that attacking in orientation, then decide whether you want to use a fullback or maybe a wingback on defend. And if you find that your wingback isn't coming back quickly to defend, then you have to look at his mental and his physical attributes to see whether or not he is mentally aware that he needs to get back, and physical attributes because you need to know whether he can actually do that job physically. So whenever you're using a wingback, these are very interesting things to bear in mind. The next role we're going to take a look at is the complete wingback. A good example of a complete wingback in the modern game is Jordi Alba. He started out as a winger with Valencia and then was retrained to be a complete wingback. This is a very dynamic role, very attacking role. It's a role that will see your back prioritize attacking instead of defending. Now, this explains why there are only two duties in the game: support and attack. The key thing to remember here is it has a roam from position play instruction, which gives the player a lot of freedom to leave his designated position. Sometimes you will see the complete wingback coming in narrow. Sometimes you see the complete wingback dribbling the ball, inside the pitch if there's space. So if there's space for him to explore, the complete wingback is going to take full advantage of this. And he loves to cross the ball. He'll go down the byline when he gets the opportunity. He'll dribble. He'll run wide with the ball. He also stays wide. So the complete wingback, when you want to use a complete wingback in the game, the first thing you got to ask yourself is whether your player can actually perform the role. That means he needs decisions. He needs first touch. He needs dribbling. He's an all-round action figure. Okay, so he's got to have acceleration, stamina. He's going to be dribbling with the ball, so naturally first touch is going to be important. Passing is going to be important. Stamina is definitely going to be important. And now, if you want him to play such an attacking role, he's going to bomb down the flanks. If he doesn't have teamwork, he's probably sometimes just going to not pass the ball. So you want a good mix of attributes, and this is not an easy role to fulfill in the game. I hardly ever use the complete wingback in any of my games. I will if the player has got no onus to defend. So if I find that one of my players doesn't have a brain to defend, I'll probably just make him into a complete wingback. A good example of this is Ryan Sessegnon in the game. Ryan Sessegnon makes an excellent example of a player who should be, by default, a complete wingback, because he has absolutely no idea on how to defend. But he makes a fantastic player going forward. Why? He's got phenomenal acceleration. So I've coached people in this game, and I've seen some of the players in the game, and whenever I see a player with fantastic acceleration, crossing and dribbling, I almost immediately tell them to retrain him as a complete wingback, because he's just going to add another dimension to your game. Furthermore, he can even play as a wingback. But when you have that player in your team, you have to consider the fact that that flank is going to be weak, so you need to put a solid central defender there, and you got to think as well. If you start playing on you got to watch your shape settings. Shapes doesn't mean that you're going to be vulnerable to balls over the top all the time. What it does mean is that complete wingback on attack is going to bomb forward, right? So if you play on a fluid shape, you're going to have several people bombing forward with him as well. Now, this means that if I were to play a complete wingback on attack here, for example, and I played a wide midfielder on attack in front of him, these two guys are going to bomb forward. So if I'm playing on a very fluid shape, 1, 2 are going to bomb forward. I'll probably have this guy defending and this guy defending. Maybe I might have some security on the left flank. But if you had a support duty here, if you have disregard the roles at the moment. So let's just assume we have a box-to-box midfielder and support here. We got a complete wing back here, and we got a wide playmaker here, and we decide, okay, fine, hallelujah, let's let them go attacking. What's going to happen is your entire left flank is probably going to be empty. The only guy who's going to be defending is going to be this central defender. He's going to have a lot of work to do, and don't be surprised if your complete wing back picks up yellow cards, because if he's out of position all the time, he's going to try and rush back, and because somebody has to commit to a challenge, a defensive duty, he might just, slide in late on a player and give up a yellow card. So whenever you use roles like the complete wing back, you really need to think about how you're going to defend the flank when he is not there, because there's got to be somebody there that's going to cover those duties that the complete wing back apparently has no inclination to do in the game. So if you're going to choose to use a attacking duty for a complete wing back, even in a fluid shape, doesn't matter whether you're using fluid, structured, or any other shape for that matter, that guy is going to bomb forward. So this is something that you have to understand, because there's a misconception that if I'm playing very fluid, I'm going to be vulnerable to balls over the top. It all depends on the duties you have in your team and how you place them and the roles and duties you use in your team. So you got to think about how you position those roles and duties and how you compensate for them as well. In order to get the best out of your fullbacks and wingbacks, you need to understand how to take advantage of space. And this is going to be a function of your own tactic. Now, some tactics may be narrow and some tactics will be using wingers or side midfielders in your tactics. So whenever you use a system like a 4-4-2, for example, where you have fullbacks and you may have an ML or an AMR slot, or you may even be using a 4-3-3 with an AML and an AMR who are ahead of two fullbacks. Now, these systems both have players on the flanks. So in this particular case, the fullbacks may not necessarily overlap unless you have chosen the right duties. So in this particular case, the midfielders will need to be on a support duty. The fullbacks can be on support or they can be on an attacking duty. Something interesting happens when you start using narrow systems. Now, when you use narrow systems, nobody else is going to give you width except for the fullbacks in the game or the wingbacks in the game. Now, if you are using a defend duty, the defend duty will also be quite high up the pitch. Here in this screenshot, we have a wingback who is quite far up the pitch and he's supporting play. This will happen because nobody else is giving you that width. This is something that you need to understand whenever you are using fullbacks, wingbacks, or complete wingbacks in the game. In a narrow system, then, fullbacks and wingbacks could push higher up the pitch to support play because no one else is providing width in the tactic. Finally, we have the inverted wingback. Now, the inverted wingback happens to be one of my favorite roles in the game. The inverted wingback is basically a cross between a fullback and a defensive midfielder. You mix them together and voila, you have yourself an inverted wingback. Is it that easy? Not really. But anyway, I like to think of it in that way, because if an inverted wingback basically defends the fullback slot, but when he has the ball, he moves into a defensive midfielder position. So depending on the duty that you choose, this will affect how high up the pitch he goes. So if you have an inverted wingback on a defend duty, he will be defending the fullback's this position on the pitch. And then when you are moving the ball through the transitions, he will sit narrower in midfield, and then he will try and protect the pocket in this area where the defensive midfielder is supposed to sit. Now, if he's playing in a support duty, he's going to get involved in the transitions. He's also going to be in and around the box when an opportunity presents itself. And then finally, you've got the attack duty. Now, the attack duty, the inverted wingback on attack duty, don't be surprised if you find him very close to your the opposition box. So all these roles, the inverted wingback, they all they defend in the flanks, but when they have the ball, they move into the defensive midfielder slot. So they end up performing different roles along the way. Now, how do you use the inverted wing back? Now, there are a lot of tactics out there that I've seen uploaded, and they all don't use the inverted wing back very correctly. Now, if you were to use an inverted wing back on a defend duty, it means that he's going to sit in a hole here. This allows you to release a player, which is one of your roles here can be released. And you ideally do not want to use an inverted wingback on defend with a central midfielder here on defend duty or a DM on defend duty, because then they just be two defensive-minded players in this part of the pitch. The whole idea behind using an inverted wingback is to release the central midfielder so they can either run wide with the ball or he can attack through the middle. So if you're using an inverted wingback on defend, then what you want is you can definitely release one of these players into a more attacking role or a support role. This means that you won't have two players colliding with each other and taking up each other's space. An inverted wingback on support, he can move in front of a defensive-minded player. So you can have a DLP on defend or any defend duty and then opt to use an inverted wingback on support. What the inverted wingback on support will then do is that he's going to move in front of the DLP, and he will try and they will be very close together and they'll try and support each other. And then finally, you got the inverted wingback on attack who's going to try and get involved in the final third transitions. Now, whenever you use an inverted wingback, the more important thing to remember is because of the positioning and the way he moves with the ball, chances are you're going to leave this area of the pitch is going to be vulnerable. Of the first thing you have to understand. So whenever you use an inverted wingback, this is a role that is fairly challenging in the game to use, and the most important attribute that you want to think about when you have to consider a player for that role is he needs good decisions, he needs decent positioning and off the ball. So these are the three key attributes I focus in when I want to opt for a player to play that role. If I want him to play as an inverted wing back, then generally I like to change his duty along the way in the game, because sometimes I just want him to defend, and sometimes I want him to support play or get further forward. So in this particular case, there are two attributes I look at: positioning and off the ball. These are the two important attributes. So if he is expected to be defensive in orientation and positioning, concentration, anticipation, and if he's meant to get forward with the ball, off the ball, finally we have first touch, decisions, passing, vision are going to come into play. Because remember that if you have him in a defense, playing as a defensive duty, then you don't really need him to go up there and become a creator. But if you want him to become a creator, then you're looking at passing visions and decisions as well. So this is when you want to use him in a support duty. The inverted wingback is a fantastic pivot in the game, because he can hold position pretty well, and the only consideration you need to do here is whenever you're using an inverted wingback, because he covers such a wide area, because the fullback just goes up and down the flanks, right? But the inverted wingback has to protect the flanks as well as move centrally. This means that he needs a lot of stamina, he needs good work rate, he definitely needs bravery, and he will also need acceleration to a large extent. Because if he's further up the pitch and he's expected to come back and defend, if he doesn't have acceleration, leave this pocket open. Now, doesn't mean that you can't use a player with no acceleration here. If you have an inverted wing back who doesn't have good acceleration, then make sure that you have a central defender there who can cover the slack. Now, one of the other problems that I see, or challenges that I see, is the misuse of this role. Now, an inverted wingback will perform the role if there is somebody on the flanks as well. So if you have a player in the playing in this ML slot or MR slot, the inverted wingback will definitely be able to perform his duty, because there is somebody else on the flank providing flank duties, so the inverted wingback will do the role that you want him to do. However, if there is nobody in either the ML slot or the AM slot, the inverted wingback will default to being like a fullback, but he will have all the other stuff in there as well. He will have the roam position, he'll sit narrow, he'll cross, and he may not cut inside with the ball now, because if you have no winger on the flanks, if you're playing without a winger or another AM in the final third, then the inverted wingback will go down the flanks and behave like an orthodox fullback. So if you want to use the inverted wingback the way Pep Guardiola used to use it with Bayern Munich, or with Barcelona, then what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have somebody providing width on the flanks. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Role Guides. We tried to cover all the backs in one show. Now, naturally, there'll be questions, and I tend to use different kinds of backs in my tactics. Please feel free to ask me any question on how you want to use your fullbacks to better effect. You can always look me up on Twitter at Bustthenet or addicted2fm.com, my website. Once again, I'd like to thank all my patrons for their continued support of this channel. You make these kind of shows possible for the rest of the community. You guys take care, have a good one, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.